Okay, so Manchester City have started off the season on absolute fire. Erling Haaland has started on fire. There's been a lot of players. Rodri, De Bruyne statistically has started on fire. But there have been one player, for me personally, in mind who has not started off on fire, and that is Riyad Mahrez. He has been absolutely pish, in my opinion. I don't think he's been very good at all. Barely getting involved in games, and then when he does come on, he doesn't make much of an impact whatsoever. Joe, I know you've been dying for this one, man. Talk about Riyad Mahrez, my son.
As a former Mahrez hater turned lover turned semi-hater again, I guess you could say now, he hasn't been good. I think I noticed it at the end of last season.
He did.
I don't want to say I was the first because I probably wasn't, but I did notice it towards the end of last season. Although I do have to say the difference between the end of last season and the start of this season is he was still contributing at the end of last season. He still scored in the Bernabeu. He was still actually contributing statistically, whereas this season the performances have kind of stayed the same as the way it ended, but he's not getting the stats, which is understandable because his goal output was going to decrease regardless. Like everybody's goal output has decreased at the moment, but it is becoming a little bit of an issue now that we have got to our first international break. We've got into September. By the time we return to club football, it'll be October. And he hasn't got going. And we have previously said before that he is a player that we would associate with taking a while to get going. You know, you got to play him into form, play him into so get a run of games so we can get something going for him. But right now, at this moment in time, you can't do that. You can't afford him to do that because there's players who are playing in the same position that he plays in on that right-hand side, specifically Foden, who looks better there at the moment than he did on the left. You just can't take out the team and afford to give Mahrez those minutes to get into form. And it's something that when we were doing live streams, there was people telling me, "I just wait till the Champions League comes around. He's our Mr. Champions League. You know, he's a Champions League player." And we're 2 games into our group, and I think he started. Has he even started yet? I don't think he started yet. Like that is the level that we're at right now, where we're going into big games, and he's not playing. He's not playing. Like he's not trusted to play. He's coming on when we've got the game wrapped up. Like I think the one where he didn't was Aston Villa, and he came on when we were winning, and you know we go and concede straight away after he comes on. Obviously, I'm not blaming him for conceding. That's a bit far, but we just looked toothless. We just didn't look like, creating too much going forward to try and nick a winner against Aston Villa. When he came on against Wolves, they were down to 10 men, and I'm pretty sure we were 3-0 up, if not 2-0 up at that point when he came on. I think it was 3-0 because Foden was still on the pitch and he scored the third. Like, he's coming on when we've got games wrapped up, which obviously Pep has hinted to that in one of his quotes that I saw the other day, which was he wants the real Mahrez back. Like, even he knows that Mahrez is playing subpar towards, his standards, which over the last couple of seasons, top scorer last season was one of our players of the season, realistically, you'd say, in terms of statistically anyway. So it is a bit of a drop-off. I'm not too worried yet. Obviously, with this whole narrative of him having games to play himself into form, Algeria, to my knowledge, aren't at the World Cup, so he's going to have a break, like a big layoff where he's not playing football. So I don't know how he's going to fare this season. It was a risk giving him a new contract, but if you didn't give him one, you had to let him go. And I mean, you couldn't really let him go after the season he had, but he's got some work to do to turn it around, because I think it kind of ties into Cole Palmer's development. At the moment, he's sort of in the same boat where he's coming on when we've got games wrapped up. Understandably, he's a young player. He just needs a little bit of time at this level. But the thing that I can't really seem to wrap my head around is when Palmer's coming on, he's coming on the left, which is not his position. Now, of course, understandably, any experience is good experience at this level. But I do want to hear from you on this. This is my main point of, if Palmer's coming on the left, is that where we see him in the future? I don't see him on the left in the future, to be honest. I don't think he's played on the right this season. He played in midfield at the Barcelona charity match, and he's played on the left when he's coming off the bench. So you could arguably say Mahrez is potentially contributing to maybe him not growing in the role that he wants to play in, or that he will be playing in the future. Now, of course, you can't really do anything about that. Like, we've got so many players who can play on that right-hand side, it's unbelievable. But it is something that, I don't know how to feel about Palmer coming on that left-hand side, because I don't see him there in the future. And he'd probably right now, in my eyes at least, contribute just as much as Mahrez, if not more, based on form.
Yeah, 100%. I do think that Palmer being brought on the left will be a stunt in his growth, because that's what the kind of player he is. He isn't a wide player. He likes to cut into his left. That's how he scores most of his goals. We saw in the under-23s. We saw it in the Man City team when he scored a couple of goals, especially in the FA Cup. That has been his forte, cutting in onto his left foot, like Mahrez. When you have, again, we always say as well, having two players like Mahrez and Grealish, either side, the wings aren't going to work. Palmer isn't a head down run of people either. He's been bred into the possession side of play. He's slow, methodical. He can run at people, but usually when he's on that right hand side, it's slow, methodical. He knows what to do. But this thing with Mahrez, I do think that if Palmer's coming on now, if he's coming on in place of Mahrez, he's getting more done. He is getting more done because he's just on better form. I mean, he scored that goal. I know it was a friendly match regardless, but he scored that goal against Barcelona. He looked really, really lively in that. He's able to drop into the midfield. He's able to play as a false line. If Haaland were to come off, I don't like him on the left. It's not working on the left for him in the sense that he's going to be playing on the right. He will be a right-sided player. Mahrez has got, if he picks up form, maybe 2 years left at the top. If you want Palmer in this team, you play him in his proper position. So this could definitely contribute to it. But Mahrez's output, again, you said it's always going to fall off. I think it will fall off. He's a goal scorer and winger. That's what he's been for the last 2 years. When you have a goal scorer and striker coming in and scoring 14 goals in 10 games, it's going to take away from Mahrez. It takes away one of his most valuable assets. And when that happens, unfortunately, it's not going to look very good for his output at all. But even getting involved in game Mahrez has been poor. Again, he made no effect in that Villa game. Like you said, he started against Dortmund and everyone was crying for him to be pulled off after about 20 minutes. That's the level we're back at with Mahrez. I don't even want to say we're at. It's where we're back at. It's where we were when we first signed him. He's just proven ineffectual. If you're bringing on someone who's proven ineffectual instead of a player over a player who is better, who is playing better, a more suiting player, it just kind of ruins it. And it makes Mahrez look even worse in that perspective, that he is getting game time in a place that someone else could be getting it. I don't know. I do agree with you. I do think it could be a massive stunt for them.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't know how long I'm willing to put up with it, to be honest, because I think me and you are both in the same boat that Cole Palmer, as it stands right now, has an incredibly, incredibly high ceiling as a football player. Yeah. He's so technically gifted, but he needs to be in the right environment to grow. He needs to be played in the position that suits him, in a role that he's going to play down the line. But I think that Mahrez still being here is still, he's still got a part to play, even if he doesn't play. He's still an experienced player. He's still been to the latter stages of every competition. He's still, a serial winner at this point. And a player like Cole Palmer will naturally look at Mahrez and, ask him for advice, ask him, any tips that he's got, because he plays a similar role and he will play a similar role. He's got similar strengths. He's very good on the ball. He's not blessed with blistering pace. But he's a similar player in that he's got a sweet left foot and he's a goal scorer. He's a natural goal scorer. He's got a credible technique when striking a ball. But I think the point of Palmer coming on and making more effective is because he's young, he's got nothing to lose, he's willing to try more, which is something that Mahrez isn't doing right now. You keep constantly going backwards. With Palmer, you'd see him try a little bit more to make things happen, because he just wants to get going. He wants to play football. He's not scared of losing the ball at the moment. He's, again, in his eyes, he's got nothing to lose. If he comes on and plays bad, then that's chance wasted. But he knows he's not going to get many opportunities, so he needs to try to impress so he gets those opportunities further down the line. But I'm not saying we should get rid of Mahrez or anything like that. I'm not going to the absolute extreme, because he still has a lot to offer both on and off the pitch. But it is just slightly worrying, and it is something that we need to keep our eye on, because obviously this new big contract, I think it was only 2 or 3 years, so it's not too long. But again, it was a risk when we did it, even though we should have done it. It was still a little bit of a risk when we did sign him to that new contract, and I don't believe that footballers drop off as quickly as that. I know we saw it with Fernandinho, but he was 37. Mahrez is not 37. He doesn't just drop off completely like that as a footballer. That's not the natural decrease. He's still got a few years left at the top level before we even should really be thinking about replacing him. It's just, I'm not too happy with what I'm watching when he's on the pitch.
Yeah, there needs to be a shake of some sort. There needs to be something done to make Mahrez better. If you think there's a system that you can fit into now with the number 9, where you can be the best right winger, please let us know and spread it around everywhere, because I'd love to see him back, fire him back to his best. Because when he's one of the most unplayable footballers in the world. I think he's fantastic when he's on top form. But look, they're just quick thoughts really on Riyad Mahrez. I think he has to be better to get back in the team. There's not much more else you can say. It's definitely been a case of him just not turning up when he's been called upon. And realistically, if you want to keep your place at the top, that's what you have to do.